Hey guys, it's me again, Eric, and tonight I want to talk to you about 3 on a Meat Hook. Now that is a classic film title right there. I mean, that is a bold title that just reaches out and grabs you by the throat. It just rolls off the tongue in the same way Last House on the Left or Texas Chainsaw Massacre does. It has that very memorable quality about it. William Girdler, the writer and director of 3 on a Meat Hook, he was already starting off on second base with that title because it fucking grabs you by the balls. Now, it came out in 1973, and it's also notable in that the special makeup effects were done by Pat Patterson. Now, anyone who's seen Dr. Gore, aka The Body Shop, knows who Pat Patterson is. Now, unfortunately, both William Girdler and Pat Patterson both passed away in the 70s. Pat Patterson passed away in 1975, and William Girdler died at the age of 30 in a plane crash in 1978. But we'll always have the films that they left behind to remember them by, and in this case, 3 on a Meat Hook, we're talking about a really cool cult horror movie. This is the Regal clamshell release. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this iconic cover art right here. You got the 2 broads, you got blood streaming down them, you got a bloody meat hook hovering in the front. I mean, this is just a classic piece of art. And out of all of the Regal clamshells, this is probably my #1 favorite overall. I also really dig the cover art for Nightmare Circus. That's got great, but a lot of them, you know, The Devil Walks at Midnight. Regal just really had covers that just were very eye-catching. And yeah, so here's the... Regal released this film to VHS in 1986. The case itself has a copyright date of 1985, but if you look at the actual VHS tape, it says 1986. So I think that's when it hit the store shelves back in the 80s. There's the back right there. But yeah, classic clamshell. And for me, this cover art, it totally blows away the poster, like the one sheet and shit that they released. When they put the film out in theaters in the 1970s, and it played, you know, drive-ins and all that kind of shit, the cover art for that's kind of boring compared to this. I mean, this is where it's at right here. So I've always loved this cover art. The film was shot in Louisville, Kentucky. Now that's where William Girdler hailed from, and he shot a lot of his early stuff there. Some other movies that he did were Asylum of Satan. He also did Day of the Animals, and another movie that he's famous for was Grizzly. Now, a little bit about my history with 3 on a Meat Hook. I was always aware that the film existed, because in the early 90s, as a kid growing up, I would get review books and such, different horror review books, and so I was aware of the title 3 on a Meat Hook and the synopsis and what it was about, but I had never seen it in a video store until about the year 2000 is when I first saw the film. I was working at a video store that I've talked about before, Video Varieties, and anyway, it was there on the store shelf, and I rented it, took it home, watched it, and, you know, fairly impressed by it. The movie has its flaws, but even then I was still impressed by the movie, and of course I love the fucking cover of the damn thing and the title, just everything about it. It's something you don't forget. It's a cult classic. And anyway, I remember about a year or 2 later, I came into work and the tape was sitting behind the counter, and it was in this pile by the trash can. And I was like, what the hell's that doing there sitting by the trash? Well, I asked the store manager at the time, Amanda, I said, what is that doing sitting there beside the trash can? Because it looked like it was going to be thrown away. It was sitting amongst a bunch of trash. She said, well, a customer brought it back and it doesn't play. So I got it out, I put it in the VCR, and she was right, it didn't play anymore. For some reason, the tape had just been completely erased. And I said, well, what are you going to do with it? She said she was going to throw it away. It was going to go in the trash. I said, let me have it. I'll take it. You know, I didn't even care. I was like, you know, I knew I could get another copy somewhere else to watch the film. You know, I could get on eBay and order the movie to watch it some more, but I wasn't going to let a perfectly good clamshell be thrown in the trash. I loved that fucking artwork. I wanted to put it on a fucking mantle at home and light candles around it and worship it. You know what I mean? So anyway, I said, you're not throwing that away, I'll take it. So she gave it to me and I took it home. I don't even have that copy anymore. I don't know what happened to it. Like I said, the tape didn't work, but anyway, yeah. You don't throw something like this in the trash. Even if the tape doesn't play, don't throw it in the damn trash. I mean, this is a treasure right here. Yeah, that's my history with Three on a Meathook. Now let's get on to the plot of the goddamn movie, shall we? It must be pointed out that the first thing that grabs you as soon as Three on a Meathook starts is the yellow-looking transfer. I mean, it's just so yellow. It looks like someone took every available print of this movie, or the very negatives themselves, and just took a big, long, steaming piss all over them, because it's just yellow as fuck. So it's a real shame that this movie's like a cult classic. The director died at a young age. And it's just a real shame that this cool little exploitation movie hasn't been taken better care of over the years. It's never had a nice, dazzling DVD or Blu-ray release, and it probably never will. And that's unfortunate, because the movie does deserve more respect than it gets. Now, it's obviously inspired by Ed Gein and Psycho. It's very reminiscent in certain sequences to Psycho. There are a lot of similarities in certain parts. And so, you know, that's the funny thing about the early 70s. You had many different movies inspired by Ed Gein and Psycho. You had Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you had Terror at Red Wolf Inn, you had Deranged, and of course you had Three on a Meathook. But anyway, the movie starts out and you got this piss yellow looking, smudgy looking scenery. And then we get into the plot. You get some nudity right off the bat. You get this chick getting out of bed with this guy and her pasty tits are out. She's got her whole body's tan, but her tits right in the middle are real pasty white. And anyway, she gets together with three of her friends, and they're out skinny dipping in the fucking lake, and they're driving around on a boat, and they're just having a good time, these swinging 70s chicks. They get into their car at the end of the night after they've had a lot of fun that day, and they're driving. It's dead of night, totally dark, and anyway, their car breaks down. So these four chicks are just stranded out on a dark road in the middle of the night. Well, that's when we meet Billy Townsend. He pulls up in his shit-covered truck. He drives this really ugly truck. He pulls up and he ambles out and he offers the girls a ride back to his place because he says there's nothing he can do to fix the car. It'll have to be taken to an auto repair shop in the morning. So anyway, Billy takes the four girls back to his old farmhouse, and there's some thunder rumbling in the sky. And when they get into the house, the first thing they notice when they look up the stairs is that Billy's dad, Frank, is standing up there like a fucking weirdo, just standing there. So Billy goes up the stairs to talk to his dad, and his dad does not want these girls here. Right away, we see that something is very off-kilter about this relationship between Billy and his dad. Billy says, hey, these girls got to stay here for the night. It's the middle of the night, there's a storm, their cars broke down, I can't just leave them out alongside the road. Dad says to him, get them out of here, you need to get them out. Billy puts his foot down, he says, nope, these girls are staying here, and I'll be showing them to their rooms after they get something to eat. And that's what he does. Well, things don't go so good for these 70s chicks. The first thing that happens is the blonde, she's pretty hot. She's taking a nice bath, you know, and washing herself up. And you notice that someone's stalking up the stairs. And this has a nice POV slasher type shot. And you hear some, you know, heavy breathing on the audio track. So this adds more suspense. It's a nice dynamic already. And he stalks up the stairs and he comes into the bathroom and he catches her off guard and he stabs her to death. Now, we don't know who's doing the killing yet. We don't know whether it's the son, Billy, or whether it's the dad, Frank. That's played a mystery all the way till the end of the movie, and I'm not going to spoil which one's doing it. But anyway, the blonde's in the tub. She gets stabbed to death. And this stabbing scene will remind you a lot of Psycho. You can tell that that was the influence on this sequence. So I can't show any pictures of that in the review because it shows her tits and everything, but it's a pretty good, you know, stabbing scene. You don't see any, like, puncture wounds or anything like that, but there is some nice blood, and just the way it's edited, it looks pretty cool. Now, after that, the killer goes into another room where two of the girls are sleeping. He pulls out a shotgun and he blows two of these girls away with the shotgun. You got some shotgun blasts right to the torso. You got some blood. They fly back on the bed. And then the last girl, the fourth of the bunch, when she runs and tries to get away, and this is the ugly one. Out of the four girls, this one's the real, like, she's real unattractive. She gets decapitated, and I like the way this is shot with the hatchet going through her neck. The way they did this effect, it's primitive, but it's cool. And you see the bloody headless torso start to fall forward, and it's cut in a really cool way, and I like the way that effect is played out. Now, after these four murders, the next morning, Frank immediately starts in with Billy. What have you done? See, this is what happens whenever you bring girls home. And Billy's like, I don't remember doing anything. I didn't do anything. And, you know, this kid's losing his fucking mind because he's walking around the house and seeing these corpses and going, I didn't hurt these girls. I have no ill intent in my heart to harm anybody. And you kind of believe it looking at the dude, just looking at his face and his sleepy fucking eyes. You never get the impression that Billy's the killer. You're kind of, you know, suspicious the whole time of the dad. That's the one that you really zone in on because he just seems fucked up. I mean, you see him that night before the murders even take place. You see him laying in his bed and he's fucking drinking whiskey and he's sweating like an old hog. He's just a disgusting reprobate. So your suspicions are automatically with the dad, even though he's trying to paint it like Billy's the killer. So anyway, he tells his son, go into town and get some supplies, you know, and I'll take care of this. And he says, you know, go see a movie, whatever. So Billy leaves and he's real depressed and distraught because he thinks he blacked out in the middle of the night and killed these four girls. So he goes and visits his mother's gravesite, and it's kind of a somber scene of him talking to her tombstone, and the graveyard looks really, you know, cool and isolated and lonely looking. And then after that, he goes to this bar. And he's sitting at the bar drinking, and this scene really drags. Right here in this midsection, when he's at this bar, there's this horrible, awful band that just stands up on the stage, and they are playing the most grating, annoying shit music you have ever heard in your life, and you think this shit's never gonna end. It just drags on and on and on. And if you're tired already, this is a part where you might fall asleep, okay? Because this sequence here where he's at the bar drinking could have really used some editing. That's for damn sure, but they probably needed to pad the film out because as it is, the movie is only an hour and 18 minutes long. So Billy's at the bar and he's drinking his sorrows away when he's approached by a cocktail waitress named Sherry. Now, long story short, Billy starts a relationship with Sherry. For some reason, she sees something in this ugly, mongoloid-looking motherfucker. And they hit it off, and over the course of the next 15-20 minutes of the film, you see their relationship progress to the point where she wants to come out and visit his farm. And that's what ends up happening. Billy goes and he picks up Sherry and her friend Becky. Becky's this cute blonde girl. And they both come out to the farm. Well, we all know that this isn't going to end exactly well. And the movie comes to a startling conclusion shortly thereafter. Now, there are two twists at the end. One of the twists you can kind of see coming. The second twist is a bit of a jolt. And I like how they, you know, wrapped it all up at the end and explained it because it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool little twist at the end. Now let's discuss the good points and the bad points. Let's start off with the good first. The first thing I want to say about 3 on a Meat Hook, first of all, is the title. Obviously, it's a masterful exploitation title. You see that on a marquee and you want to slap down your hard-earned dollars and watch that fucking movie if you're a horror fan. Now, second good point, the rustic farm setting. Like I said, this is shot out in the country. He lives in an old farmhouse. You can tell it's been there for many years. Then there's a lot of barns and sheds on the property, and I really like this country setting because it adds a sense of immediacy. It adds a sense of realism, like you can reach out and touch it. So that is great. Great for atmosphere and just great overall for the film. Another good point is the primitive but effective gore effects from Pat Patterson. In the first 20 minutes, you get a vicious stabbing. you get shotgun killings, and you get a decapitation. Then later on in the movie, you get this super brutal pickaxe to the stomach, and you get to see an amputated leg getting chopped up and being prepared for dinner. Also, let's not forget, the movie's called Three on a Meathook. So you're obviously going to get a quick glimpse of three naked, mangled broads hanging on razor-sharp meat hooks. So overall, they don't lie. This movie, with its cover art and with its title, it's telling you the truth. You do get some good, blood and violence in this flick. Most of the girls in this movie show their tits. Plus, Billy's girlfriend, Sherry, he had just met her the night before. They haven't even slept together yet, but you see her standing in front of the closet just baring her ass. She doesn't even care. She walks around showing her ass to Billy all the time. No one will ever accuse Three on a Meathook of not delivering the sleazy goods. So you got plenty of blood, and you got plenty of TNA. These girls get down and naked. You see plenty of tits, and you see girls just walking around their fucking house with their ass hanging out. So you don't have to worry about that if that's what you're wanting to see in your horror film. Nudity is not always necessary, of course, but it's always a nice bonus when you do get it. Some movies it works and some don't need it. But Three on a Meathook, it's a movie that needs those nice doses of nudity, okay? You gotta ramp up that sleaze factor. The cannibalistic twist to the movie is also very cool. I like that. I think it adds a nice extra bit of depth to the film. And I mean, of course, it's going to have some kind of cannibalism type thing going on. I mean, what good, 70's movie inspired by the Ed Gein case didn't have some cannibalism? You had it in Texas Chainsaw, you had it in Deranged, you had it in Terror at Red Wolf Inn. So it's only fitting that you'd have some of that in Three on a Meathook. The scene where the killer is chopping up a fucking severed leg and you see the tissue and you see the blood at the end. It's, these effects are crude, but it looks super cool and it just really, hits home with you if you're a horror fan. Anyone who loves the 70's horror flicks, you know that we love seeing that type of stuff in these old gore films. It's not Tom Savini or K&B, level effects, but it's crude, simplistic, and that just makes it hit home all the more. Now, on to a few bad points. As we all know, no movie is totally perfect, and Three on a Meathook, of course, is going to have a few flaws. First of all, I want to point out that the music score, which was composed mostly by William Girdler himself, I must point out that this music score is utterly horrendous. It's just shit. It's awful. It's a terrible score. So that's one thing where you have to detract some points. The music score is awful. If you've seen the movie, you know what it sounds like. It's just wonky, off-the-wall shit. One funny thing about the score is the piano. There's a piano theme that plays at the very end. It sounds like the theme song for Young and the Restless. I found that quite interesting. I mean, that's what it reminded me of. I used to hear the Young and the Restless theme song a lot when I was a little kid because my grandma watched it every day at like fucking 1 o'clock every weekday. So I'm very familiar with how Young and the Restless, how the intro song sounds. And that piano theme at the end of Three on a Meathook sounds a hell of a lot like Young and the fucking Restless. So that's a pretty funny little tidbit there. The pacing could be a little tighter. You got that pretty good opening 20 minutes, but then right in the middle, it kind of slows down at that bar scene. That could have been done a little bit better. They could have shot that a little bit different, cut it together a little, made it more interesting and visually appealing. Now, one last bad thing, because there's not much that I can point out bad about Three on a Meathook. I even think the acting's pretty good in it. It's a pretty damn fine movie. It's sad that every print looks like garbage. So we're kind of coming full circle here because I pointed this out at the beginning of the movie. It's a really cool cult horror film. I wouldn't say, it's not a masterpiece and it's not a great movie, but it's a solid horror film. It's a very good horror film. And it has a lot of proto-slasher elements to it. You get some heavy breathing on the audio track in that opening killing where there's the stabbing in the bathtub, you know, and that breathing and the POV and the way it's cut, it really adds a lot of immediacy and brutality. And that it really struck me how this movie was made in 1972, but a killing, a sequence like that, the bathtub murder, would not be out of place in a movie made in 1982 during the whole slasher boom. So it was ahead of its time with that. This movie isn't like Texas Chainsaw Massacre where you don't ever see any blood or nothing. This movie delivers as far as the blood goes. So that's why it's sad that even though it has a lot of good qualities, it just has never been dealt nice, lavish red carpet treatment. And I really think that that's what 3 on a Meat Hook deserves. It deserves its day in the sun. It deserves its spot to shine, and I really wish it could. There was some kind of double feature DVD that was put out by some fly-by-night shit company like a few years back, and it was on sale on Amazon. I know some people bought that DVD thinking they were going to get this cleaned up print. No. Awful, awful, terrible quality. So, yeah, it's sad. And, you know, it's also sad because William Girdler died at such a young age. And I think it would be a nice way to pay homage to his legacy. So, yeah, guys, if you haven't seen 3 on a Meat Hook, definitely seek it out. It's not a hard movie to find. Now, on VHS, it's a little bit harder to find a nice copy. But, I mean, you can pick up a cheap DVD release of it, like I said, fairly easily, and definitely give the movie a watch because it's one that I highly recommend. I've always been a fan of it, and it really, for a low-budget, early 70s horror movie, it certainly delivers the goods and lives up to the promise of its title. And just look at it. Just look at it. I mean, what red-blooded horror fan wouldn't love this film? Just by looking at the cover, you fall in love with it. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like button. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of 3 on a Meat Hook. Let me know what you think of other early 70s cannibalistic, you know, psycho, chainsaw welding horror flicks. I want to know what you think of all that, you know, the whole exploitation scene during the early 70s, what some of your favorites are, and certainly what you think of 3 on a Meat Hook. Also, if you haven't, please check out my new horror movie douchebag review for Blood Cult. I promise you, you have never seen a horror review like my review for Blood Cult. Definitely click on it. I put a lot of work into it, and I think you'll get a kick out of it. Definitely, if you have a sense of humor, you know, and if you like horror, I don't see why you wouldn't enjoy that new review. So definitely check it out. And thanks, guys. I really appreciate you watching my videos, and I'll see you next time.